Israeli jets struck several towns in southern Lebanon on Thursday after ordering residents to leave, marking an escalation in their near-daily strikes on the country. According to Associated Press, the airstrikes came hours after militant group Hezbollah urged the Lebanese government not to enter negotiations with Israel. Israeli Arabic spokesperson Avichay Adraee told residents in Tayba near the border, Teir Debba, located just east of the coastal city of Tyre, and Aita al-Jabal, in southern Lebanon, to flee 500 meters away from residential buildings they are targeting. It later issued more warnings for the towns of Zawtar al-Sharqiyah, where an explosion was seen after a strike as night fell, and Kfar Dounin. The Israeli military said it targeted military infrastructure for Hezbollah in those areas. It accused the group of rebuilding its capabilities almost a year after a US-brokered ceasefire went into effect that ended a months-long war. While most residents evacuated the threatened areas ahead of the strikes, Lebanon's health ministry reported one person wounded. The strikes came as Lebanese Prime Minister Nawaf Salam and his government met in Beirut to follow up on a plan drafted by the Lebanese military to disarm Hezbollah and other non-state armed groups in the country. Lebanese President Joseph Aoun has been critical of Israel's strikes and ongoing occupation of 5 hilltop points on Lebanese territory, but has said he is open to negotiations with Israel to end the tensions. In a statement read out on Manar TV, which is controlled by the militant group, Hezbollah accused Israel of exploiting the government's statements to resume attacks. Israel says its near-daily strikes have targeted Hezbollah officials and military infrastructure, while the Lebanese government that has backed disarming Hezbollah say the strikes have targeted civilians and infrastructure unrelated to the Iran-backed group. The powerful group's military capabilities were severely damaged in Israel's intense air campaign over the country in 2024, but Hezbollah have yet to disarm, and its leader Sheikh Naim Kassem has said that the group will be ready to fight no matter how limited their capabilities might be. Both sides have accused each other of violating the ceasefire, which nominally ended the latest Israel-Hezbollah war last November. The conflict started after the October 7, 2023, Hamas-led attack on Israel that triggered the war in Gaza. Hezbollah began firing rockets into northern Israel in support of Hamas and the Palestinians, prompting Israeli airstrikes and artillery shelling in return. The low-level exchanges escalated into full-scale war in September 2024. Lebanon's health ministry has reported more than 270 people killed and around 850 wounded by Israeli military actions since the ceasefire took effect. As of October 9, the UN Human Rights Office had verified that 107 of those killed were civilians or non-combatants, said spokesperson Thameen Al-Kheetan. No Israelis have been killed by fire from Lebanon since the ceasefire. Hezbollah has claimed one attack since the agreement took effect.
كتير اشياء بالمحل. ايه محمد بيتفجروا يا زلمه. الله يسلمك. فجروا الدنيا بتضيع عنا. هلا انتوا عم تحكي معي هلا دغري. ايه والله. الله اكبر. ايه بتخالي يا حرام. بتخالي ايه والله. ايه بعد عني شوي. ايه 100 متر. يلا اوكي. والله مش عارف. اول صاروخ ما فقعش رجع الثاني. يلا اوكي ماشي ماشي. ماشي يلا يلا
The Israeli military says it has struck a number of sites across southern Lebanon. It says it is going after targets belonging to the Hezbollah militant group. Now, this is a reminder that almost a year after a ceasefire between these two bitter enemies, the situation remains quite volatile. Israel continues to occupy and hold 5 hilltop outposts in southern Lebanon. It also has continued to carry out airstrikes nearly every day. It says these airstrikes are aimed at preventing Hezbollah from rearming and rebuilding. But inside Lebanon, officials say that many of these strikes have killed civilians and hit civilian targets. These latest airstrikes are among the heaviest that we've seen. They also were preceded by evacuation orders. That was a target that we often saw during the war, where Israel would order people to flee areas ahead of heavy airstrikes. Now, Hezbollah suffered heavy losses during that war last year. It has so far refrained from striking back at Israel, yet inside Lebanon it continues to resist calls to disarm. It also has criticized Lebanon's president for expressing a willingness to negotiate with Israel. That could set the stage for further tensions with Israel and continued Israeli military activity inside Lebanon.
Moscow's defenses have already been directly breached. The air defense system protecting the Russian capital features 3 rings of assets designed to operate at 5 different altitude levels. Retired Lieutenant General Ihor Romanenko stated this on Espresso TV. This area has been known since Soviet times. Firstly, inside this area is the 1st Special Purpose Army for directly covering Moscow. Then the Moscow Air Defense District. There were only 2 of them, one Moscow and one Baku from the time of the Soviet Union, around Moscow. So these positions of the 25th complex, the oldest, are now used to deploy new modern equipment that they produce, which they have, he said. Romanenko emphasized that geographically we see 3 rings of assets deployed by them. Experts say there are 5 levels in height. For example, different complexes and different means. In addition, they have formed helicopter detachments that operate against drones, which means overall a fairly high potential. Despite this, as we know, strikes were carried out by the Ukrainian Defense Forces on military facilities. Enterprises in the Moscow region primarily, and drones are already flying in. The inviolability was directly violated in Moscow. They reached, although the number that reached is still small. Compared to other objects, it is considered a high-level indicator if 30 to 40% of our drones reach other covered objects, the general stated. He added that according to their estimates, only about 60% of objects in the Russian Federation are covered. A large number of them are conditionally covered, poorly covered by air defense means. Moscow and the surrounding region are, of course, quite powerful among what they have. I want to say that the means used are mainly our attack drones, which operate at night, which operate according to the terrain, and a number of others, which are not mentioned, let's say, by all our manufacturers, which are aimed at performing tasks specifically on objects in the region and directly in Moscow itself, Romanenko noted. The general believes that the question again is that we need to scale up this kind of production and, in addition, and certainly add missile weapons to them. Now there is talk that flamingos are already being produced by the tens, possibly up to 100, one way or another. A dozen have already been used, but from the point of view of an air target, it is a large missile that can be detected, tracked, and therefore destroyed. That is, the question is not just to develop some means, but the question is that this means effectively performs its tasks of hitting an enemy target, in this case a ground, stationary one. And there is still a lot of work regarding this implementation, he said. Romanenko emphasized that Moscow is the most protected in the Russian Federation. In summary, I want to say that despite the rather powerful air defense system around Moscow, they have no other object that they would cover so much, including the Kerch Bridge, for example, not even like that, although there, air, ground, surface, and underwater defense is carried out at the Kerch Bridge. And here, well, let's say, ground and air. But there are also means in development, and already existing means that reach targets. inflict strikes, but they need to be improved and their number increased so that such strikes have a higher potential and probability. The general concluded.